Hey guys, it's Adam in the AeroWorks Workshop, and today we're going to be talking about something that's becoming very popular on YouTube, and that's called cinematic FPV. And if you've seen any of these amazing shots flying around buildings, flying through trees, it's being done with copters like these. So in today's episode, we're going to be talking about cinematic FPV. Let's get started. Alright guys, today we're going to be talking about cinematic FPV drones, and specifically two types, and those are bind and fly, or BNF, and RTF, or ready to fly. And we have a variety of those here today, and I'll explain what each of those mean. The first drone I want to talk about is the Iflight Titan DC2. This is a little mini tiny whoop, they call them. It was pre-made, meaning it was a ready to fly. But this particular model came in a bind in fly version, which means that you already have a radio, you already have batteries. You basically take the type of radio that you have to order the receiver type that you already have. So in this case, I had a DJI set up. I had a DJI radio, and I bound it with the Titan, and I instantly had a connection there, and now I'm able to fly using existing equipment. So that's a little bit of a cost savings to you. This little guy is considered kind of in the 3-inch range. That's typically the size of the propellers. It does have the propeller shrouds, which helps you be able to protect those blades if you're flying closer to people, closer to objects, maybe inside of a house or through small openings. All three of these copters are equipped with the DJI FPV system. So earlier this year, maybe last year, they came out with a fully integrated FPV system that included their own radio specific to the system, a flight controller / receiver that has a built-in video transmitter all in one. Very high quality. You're getting like 720p out of the camera, onboard recording in the unit itself on the copter, as well as onboard recording built right into the goggles. So not only do you have a version of the better version on the copter, but you have a backed up version on your headset. And believe me, this comes in handy when you take a spill in long grass and you can't find your drone. You can go back in the goggles really quick and play it back, kind of get a landmark and go, oh, I was over there, and then you go find your drone. This guy picked up kind of as a practice drone because I knew I wanted to get into the 5-inch range. So this one run about $300–400, completely built with the DJI system in it. Like I said, you do have to have your own battery, radio, and charger, but a great little copter. And we'll put links in the description down below where you can find all these copters and how much they cost. But great little drone, great for practice. It has taken a few spills. I did break one of the shrouds, but they do include 4 additional ones. So that made it nice to be able to make a quick repair. But very durable, very fun to fly. I do have this one set up for stable mode as well as full acro, so I can go upside down and do loops and rolls. And it's a pretty amazing little guy. And again, $300–400, ready to fly. They ship it pretty quickly. All right, guys, the next one I want to talk about is the QAV-R2 by Lumenier. This is one that you purchase through Get FPV. They're a company based in Florida. They've been around a long time selling FPV equipment. Now this is one I specifically bought as a ready to fly, and they advertise this one as their Johnny FPV system. Now this is one that is kind of branded with his name on it, supposedly a kit that he flies. And the ready to fly kit included everything that we talked about on the Titan, including the FPV system, the DJI recorder, but this one also came with the DJI radio, as well as a pair of the DJI goggles. So it was a complete system with a battery for the copter and a battery for the goggles. Now, one thing I will say, this is what they call the ready to fly system. They are built to order, meaning when you order it, they start building it. Well, in my case, it took about 21 days to get this. So we realize there are some COVID things going on. However, it was a very extended amount of time to get this, so I'm not sure what their staff capabilities are down there. Another thing I will say, whenever I buy products, it doesn't matter if it's drone related or not, the biggest thing to me is customer service. And when I get treated right, I continue shopping there. And not to say that I wasn't treated right, but you know, there was very long wait times with support. Nobody answers the phone. When you send an email, it takes 2-3 days to get a canned response back or an answer to a question that maybe you didn't even ask. So I was a little upset about that. I've been ordering from Get FPV for a long time, and that's not the way it used to be. So I'm gonna give them a little bit of a break on this, considering the world that we're currently living in. But if you're looking to get a fast turnaround, you're probably not gonna happen right now under the current conditions. Again, it was told to be a 1 to 2 week wait. It was more like 4 weeks before I got this. All that being aside, very nice build, very strong frame. It's an awesome system. This is a 4S system. The battery that we packaged this with was a Lumenier battery, 1500 milliamp hour battery. Seems to have plenty of power. Again, I'm not an expert FPV flyer by any means, but just from some of the first flights that I've done with this copter, very capable. The DJI system paired with it works great. The battery seems to work great. And again, the system came in this little soft shell case with the drone inside, one set of propellers. I did upgrade, or I got a little bit of a discount on buying the flight battery as well as an additional battery to power the goggles. And I got the FPV system as a complete package, which included the radio. So if you're looking for a complete system where you may not own anything, you can get a ready to fly in the QAV or the Lumenier brand. And again, Lumenier is kind of their in-house Get FPV brand. Now this particular system here was running about $1,466. Let's just call it $1,500 for everything. Now a majority of that cost on all of these comes from the DJI system, because you're looking at about $700 to $800 to buy the goggles, the radio, and at least one air unit and a camera just right there. And then if you take the remainder of that and apply it to the copter itself, you can see where the price is made up. Just like the Titan, if this is, let's just round it up to $400, if you take $170 away from that price, you can see that the copter is more reasonable in price, but you're adding the DJI Air system to it to get that HD quality downlink and video, well then you're gonna bump up the price. So by any means, these aren't the cheapest FPV drones you can buy. You can obviously build your own, and all these companies offer kits which you can build from scratch. You can buy them in a bind to fly or ready to fly. But this again is the QAV-R2 from Lumenier or Get FPV, and they actually brand this as their Johnny FPV system. And if you're familiar with Johnny FPV, you can look online and see his videos. All right guys, the next copter I want to talk about is the XHover Blastr. And if you're familiar with the name Blastr, maybe you've heard Air Blastr. Ironically, his name is also Johnny, but he goes by Air Blastr or now just Blastr on YouTube, and he's got some amazing videos on YouTube as well. This particular frame is a custom build. It does come in a ready to fly. It also comes in a bind and fly. Because I already had a radio and goggles from my tiny whoop that I put together, I chose to go with a bind and fly version. In which case I ordered it up, and 7 days later I had this copter, and I can say that in comparison between the two, because I did order them somewhat within the same time period, the customer service, turnaround time, and questions that I had were answered exponentially higher than with the Get FPV system. Now these are both considered 5-inch quads, racing drones, cinematic drones, whatever you want to call it. You can see, except for the layout of the arms, they're essentially the same size props on there. However, this particular unit, the XHover Blastr version, comes in a 4S and a 6S. I decided on this one to try out a 6S battery, and it did not disappoint. This thing has incredible power. Right out of the box, the way they set it up in California, it's just set up for acro mode. So if you're a beginner guy like I am, you might want to change those modes, because this thing blasts right off, let me tell you that. And I'm going to put some video samples of all these copters up on the screen as we're discussing this. But this one came bind and fly, had the DJI system installed. I simply bound it to my radio, my goggles, boom, I'm up and flying. Again, 6S battery, this is a 1050 milliamp hour. I get a solid 5 minutes of flight time, and I'm keeping it very conservative on landing before I get any low battery. Again, if you're a beginner, or even if you are an experienced DJI Mavic flyer, it does not mean you're going to jump right into an FPV drone. These are kind of come from the original RC roots, which is all manual. So there is really no leveling, there's no GPS. Now I will say there is a stable mode, which basically if you let off the sticks, it does try and keep it level. However, if the wind's blowing, you're not going to be sitting in a hover like you are with your Mavic or your P4. And then when you go into acro mode, this copter can go in any direction you want it to go. And that's really where these are designed to do, both for FPV racing as well as cinematic filming like you see behind me. That's where these things really shine. And paired with the DJI HD FPV system, it allows you to really get those shots because you can see the detail in your goggles versus an analog system like we were using when we put immersion RC video transmitters on our P2s to hook up to our GoPros to just be able to see what we were doing when we were filming. Now we're seeing an HD live video in our goggles while we're flying. And again, like I mentioned earlier, these have the ability to record both the video that you're seeing on the goggles as well as a slot for a micro SD on the copter itself. So even if you don't have a GoPro mounted on top of here, you're gonna get some pretty amazing footage. Now, being in the nature of the camera where it's mounted on these, sometimes you'll get the props in the shot. So that's why typically people are gonna have your GoPro, your Osmo, whatever you're gonna put on top, you're gonna do that so that you can have that amazing 4K video. Now what's nice with, I believe both of these will do it, definitely the Blastr does it. They include a GoPro mount on theirs. The QAV does not include any camera mounts. And this mount can be mounted top front, top bottom, rear back bottom, or rear back top. So you can actually, I've seen some of these where they've had a trailing camera, a forward camera, and any combination of those. You know, you see some of these shots where the mountain bikers are going down a trail. That's not necessarily somebody flying backwards because they wouldn't be able to see where they're going. They're flying forwards and the mountain bike's chasing them and they're getting these amazing shots. So it's about getting creative with your tool as well as the editing that you see. But I wanted to talk briefly about two of the popular models that are out there. Again, these are both essentially ready to fly models. They came built. I didn't have to build anything on here. The only thing that I did do on both of these is you will have to connect to something called Betaflight. Now Betaflight is a software that allows you to connect to the flight controller, which is this little board here, not the DJI box, but the flight controller. And these have different flight controllers on them. The XHover has the Brain FPV flight controller, which is this little guy right here, and it's stacked on top of a 4-in-1 ESC, which is your electronic speed controller. So those are all built onto one board, unlike the old times when we used to have to put the ESCs out here on the arm. They're all built into one board here, and that's typically called a stack when you see those up in there. The Lumenier QAVR2, this has the F7 flight controller in it. And it's mounted in a slightly different position in the rear here, but it does have the standard 4-in-1 ESC mounted directly below the DJI system. Now you can see there is a slight difference in where these are mounted. It doesn't seem to have much effect on flight performance. The QAV unit is a little bit shorter. The XHover unit, the Blastr, is a little bit longer. But again, that just gives you more places to mount your cameras to. They both use an XT60 connector, which is your standard connector nowadays. And the little guy here, the Titan DC2, it uses an XT30 connector, which is a little tricky. I didn't have any batteries that were XT30. So initially I had to do a little conversion from a 30 to a 60, and now I have some 30 batteries. But, and that all saves weight, of course, which is going to improve flight time. So you want to be aware of that. Make sure you know what battery type you're getting when you buy one of these guys. So that's just a brief intro, guys, to the 5-inch and 3-inch tiny whoop cinematic FPV drone, FPV racer drone, whatever you want to call them. Again, these are set up, the 5-inch size is typically set up with the longer arms to give you that smoother flow, juicy flight they call it. And we're going to be practicing more and more of that because, like I said, I am not an expert at this. I've been flying airplanes and drones a long time. But but I have not been flying FPV drones that long, and we've made some, again, leaps and bounds since the days of the first FPV drones, which were full manual, full figure it out yourself. Now we've got HD video, we've got good flight controllers, we've got powerful motors, powerful batteries, and we're able to see our video that we're doing versus that scratchy screen. So stick around, guys. We're going to be doing some flight videos on these. If you have questions, comments, I said something wrong, you want to correct it, put it down below. Make sure you like and subscribe, and stick around because we'll have some pretty cool videos coming up soon. Thanks, guys.